Okay, now we're into the thick of Penn State basketball team building at this time of year. So Nate Bauer, he's back here to tell us about the next Nittany Lion who is joining Mike Rhoades and his staff. So where in the world are we going in the transfer portal today, Nate?
Penn State is going to nearby Temple University and has picked up the commitment of Zach Hicks. He is a rising junior. I'm going to call him a wing. He's a shooting guard, but he's 6'7", 185 pounds. He's just kind of like Miles Dredd isn't right because this kid is obviously taller than Miles, and obviously Miles was thicker, like bigger kid, and did some things defensively that this guy won't do. But Hicks is a shooter, right? I want to put him not necessarily. Like Andrew Funk was one of the best shooters in college basketball this past year. So not that, but fulfills, right? He's a career 36% 3-point shooter. He's a volume 3-point shooter. He took 163 in his freshman year 3-point attempts and 225 this past year. So that's volume. Like that's a guy who's going to take and make quite a bit of 3-pointers for you, and that's what Penn State needs. That's a big piece of what Mike Rhoades needs for the offensive end of the floor with this team for next season.
Yeah, we've talked about Ace Baldwin, Nick Kern on their respective commitment breakdowns. Both those guys, from what you said, athletic, penetrating, get to the bucket type of guys. So this is the balance on the floor then, is what you're saying.
Yeah, for sure. If you look at how Hicks was used at Temple, obviously highlights don't give you the same experience as watching a game. Guilty as charged. Have not had an opportunity to watch unhighlighted Zach Hicks film, right? Like I haven't watched full
Nate Bauer's
Temple
film
games.
room. Ooh.
Yeah, from last year, have not had that opportunity. But if you watch the highlights, it's so clear. I mean, it's just he's a spot up shooter. They drive the ball to the hole and kick it out to Hicks, and he makes 3-pointers. That's the highlight reel. So it's not overcomplicate things. That's what he does, and that's what he's going to be brought to Penn State to do.
So how would you characterize this as a get in the portal? Is this high priority target that they were able to secure? Is this a guy that they, should have been able to get and they did? How do you categorize getting Zach Hicks in the transfer portal from Temple?
Yeah, to my knowledge, he was the first, and there may have been one that I'm missing, but as far as I know, he was the first visitor to campus that Penn State had under Mike Rhoades. So, Rhoades took the job on March 30th, I believe it was. That was when he was introduced. And Hicks was on campus the Friday and Saturday before Easter. So within a week, they had him on campus. I wouldn't be surprised if he was a guy that VCU might have been looking at as well, right? He played in the same conference. So yeah, let me check that. Anyway, doesn't matter. No, so he was a guy who I think that they kind of cited early as being a priority and took a couple of weeks. Obviously, it's been 3 weeks since Easter, but he's a guy who I think fits what Penn State wants to do. He fulfills that shooting need, and to get him is a fairly substantial get, I think, for them on the front end of this process. I mean, like I said, they need bodies, right? Like they need bodies, and I think as this shakes out, you're gonna see like it's a marathon, right? It's not.
Yeah.
It's a marathon where it's very important to get off to a good start. And so with the commitment of Ace Baldwin, I guess it was Easter Sunday for Ace, and then Nick Kern a couple of days later. This is the continuation of that, especially after Wednesday's news that Darius Maddox, who had been on Penn State's campus for the blue-white game, ended up choosing George Mason.
Mm-hmm. So just to recap, you mentioned those guys that have chosen the Nittany Lions out of the transfer portal. Also, Jameel Brown and Kanye Clary both have determined that they're coming back to Penn State. I believe that that's all that's happened so far officially, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so how do you feel at this point in the roster building process? You talk a lot about the athleticism and the speed of play and the defense that Mike Rhoades wants to play. Got a couple of rising juniors, veteran players through the transfer portal. How do you feel about the nucleus of this team so far?
I just think it's impossible to say, honestly.
Okay.
Like, and I know that that's what you're not the only one looking for that. Everyone wants to talk about how the team is shaping up, but you just can't know when there's 5 or 6 players on the team. Period. Right? This could be not the best get. Right? Like, I mean, there's just so much of it is unknown that you don't know how.
Okay, so
all of that is going to work itself out.
Let me rephrase the question then, because you bring up a good point. What is left on the checklist? What are the other areas do you think that are high priorities right now? I have one that I think is in mind, but I want to hear from the expert.
Well, I mean, Keba Jai for sure. Like, what he's going to do dictates what you're going to do outside. I think that they're going to have centers come in. I know that they have 2. Check out my premium stuff on the site if you want to find out who those guys are. But they have 2 centers that are in the portal, I should say, and will be visiting Penn State over the next 10 days. So clearly that's a point of emphasis.
Yeah.
But also just trying to nail down Keba and Evan Mahaffey is like, I just continue to stress you've got 2 things working at the same time. One is, yes, you're out in the portal, you're trying to scout guys, you're making visits, they're on the road, they're doing all of that stuff as a coaching staff, and you want to bring in those portal players. But simultaneous to that, you're trying to also quickly establish and build relationships with your current players, the guys who are exploring the portal. They were able to convince Kanye Clary to stay. They were able to convince Jameel Brown to stick it out. Demetrius Lilly is expected to stay. If they could find a way to even keep one of the final 2, keep Evan, even if Keba Jai goes to Notre Dame or elsewhere, that would be a huge win. That would be a massive win for Mike Rhoades and his staff at this stage of the process.
And if you want to know how all of that plays out, BlueWhiteIllustrated.com is the place to go for Nate Bauer's reporting. Of course, here on the YouTube channel, when news breaks, we will have videos and information for you. Subscribe here to Blue White Illustrated on YouTube, and please hit the like button. I know I say that on every video, but I just want to let you know here at the end of the video, it is super appreciated. It helps us out, and it helps keep things churning so that we can sit here and talk to you about this stuff in the middle of, I guess it's now the end of April, as things are heating up in the transfer portal for Penn State basketball and for Penn State football. We're going to have information there as well. Nate, this stuff never stops. There's never, ever an end to the information.
And it's going to keep going. I mean, just so everyone's clear, because I think there are some maybe unreasonable expectations out there that this team will come together by the first week in May. Nope. This is going to go into this is going to go into June. It might get into July. We'll see. But to fill 13 scholarships is going to be, it's an ongoing process. And I'll drop this here because I think people are paying attention. Some of it will have to do with ongoing pursuits in the NIL space, right? Mm-hmm. Like, yeah, there are funds that are being promised and committed to players as they come into the transfer portal. That's part of it's a huge part of the transfer portal is, hey, you're going to have this opportunity to make this much money while you're at Penn State. Well, if you've committed, I don't know, half of your pot of what you currently have on 2 players, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're spending the other half of your pot on the other 5 or 6 guys that you need to bring in. No, it's okay. How do you get that pot to be bigger? like what are you doing right now to be able to ensure that you've got more commitments being made from the donor side of things to increase the pot that you're able to work with? I mean, it's just I dance around it, and I don't know why I dance around it sometimes, but it's massive. It is such a massive piece to this and where they want to go, because you're going to find that as that number dwindles, as there's less and less in the pot to work with, the quality of the player is going to go down with it.
Well, I forgot to ask, because it's just, it is foreign. It's kind of a foreign subject when we're talking about basketball and tactics and portal and recruiting, and then you forget about that. I personally forget about that, so thank you for bringing that up. It sounds like things are better. Things are more positive than they were before.
Oh, for sure.
All right.
That was before. Look, we don't have to walk through all of it, but there were sizable commitments made in a last-ditch effort to keep Micah Shrewsbury, and those commitments largely have been kept. And so Mike Rhoades has this opportunity to use that and build excitement for his brand and what he wants to do with Penn State basketball moving forward. So it's a combination of those two things. You've got the last ditch effort, which got you a pot to work with that you did not have really 3 weeks prior to that. And then also the honeymoon phase of Mike Rhoades' tenure in saying, hey, like, let's not miss this opportunity to keep this going.
It's it maybe the wrong way to look at it, but Micah Shrewsbury doing Mike Rhoades a solid on the way out by getting all of those things in place. That'll do it now for the Blue White Illustrated breaking news here with our latest commitment to the Penn State basketball team, Zach Hicks joining the Nittany Lions. For more information, once again, bluewhiteillustrated.com. He's Nate Bauer. He's going to get you that information. I'm Thomas Frank Carr. I'm going to make everything look pretty on YouTube. So be back for more of that when it breaks.